Well, I've got the real poop for you. I mean, so a lot of these shows, this TMZ, this Entertainment Tonight, they think that they've got the poop. But I've got the scoop on poop, quite literally, tonight, because my guest is a fellow named Dave Praeger. He is an author, and the topic that he chose to write about is not his childhood, and it's not a historical romance, and it's not about World War II fighter pilots. No, he looked deep within himself and, well, really kind of between his knees for the topic of the book, which is called Poop Culture, How America is Shaped by Its Grossest National Product. I love that subtitle. Poop Culture. It's a book all about going to the bathroom, its ramifications, its rumpifications, if you will, how we've treated fecal matters over the past bunch of centuries, and minutia, trivia, and also some rather important serious stuff, all about our little brown friends. And may I just say, Mr. Praeger, howdy ho, and welcome to Dave's Gone By.
That's spot on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I have a spot on, I've got to wipe that off on this conversation. But anyway.
All right.
Obvious question first. Of all the topics in the whole wide world, why an entire book about feces?
Well, the answer I give on radio shows is that I wanted to write about the most important subject in the world. And this is clearly the most important subject in the world.
So Paris Hilton took second to this, and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But to get a little bit more,
sure,
in depth on this, that's my joke answer. The truth is, I wanted to find an absurd subject and take it very, very seriously and see what would happen. Because to me, there's very little funnier than taking poop seriously.
Yeah.
And so it started out very much, humor. I started with this website called PoopReport.com.
Poop Report.
Yeah, PoopReport.com, which is for people to share funny stories of things that have happened in the bathroom. And I'm not talking about like Larry Craig-style bathroom experiences. More like, you ate too much Taco Bell and you're almost home, but you get stuck in traffic. That sort of thing. So my interest was very much absurd humor. But once I started researching the book, I realized that this is really an undiscovered country. There's really a lot of fascinating details about the subject that no one has seemed to cover. And, yeah, that's where it is. So
Well, what has not been covered about our little tawny friends?
You make it sound like a fine port wine. I like that.
Our corny friends, our nutty friends.
Yeah, there you go. Well, my first revelation, the thing that really opened my eyes, was learning about the history of the toilet. And, mostly we think that it was probably a tool of sanitation, that it must have been invented to save us from disease or something like that. But that's not the origin. The origin is actually really fascinating. It comes to us from Victorian England in the late 18th century when, if you remember your history books, the Victorians were really into morality and really into being prim and proper, because they were trying to distance themselves from the rest of the classes of their society who were, to get really into history, were becoming upwardly mobile from the Industrial Revolution. And so there was a desire to pretend like their bodies were different from other bodies in society, so that, this guy who just built a factory, he might be rich and he might have money, but he doesn't have the body of a Victorian proper gentleman. And so there was a desire for a device that would make it like fecal matter, like poop, was invisible. And a couple of inventors in the time, around the 1770s, 1780s, saw that there was a real demand for a device that would make waste invisible. And so that's what the toilet does. If you think about it, it goes in this little bowl, and you press a button, and water carries it away, and you never have to see it again.
Waste makes haste, as it were.
Yeah, exactly.
And
waste is a terrible thing to mind.
Nicely countered. And we've kept to it ever since. Now, I'm curious about the ergonomic design, because I was watching some program a couple of years ago on TV of all places, because that's where programs tend to be. But it was about toilets, and it was about the ergonomic nature of the way toilets were built, and they say that they're not actually ideal for most people. It would seem, okay, you sit down and boom, but they say, no, it should be on a tilt or some kind of weird thing.
It should be much more dramatic than that. The human body is designed for squatting when it comes to elimination.
Okay.
the way the rectum works is it's actually kind
I
of
love this. I love
Yeah.
this. I'm sorry. Yes.
This is good stuff. Listen, this should be on NPR. I don't know what we're doing right now.
Rectum. We should have killed him. Okay.
Yeah. The rectum is designed to act like a shelf. So when you're standing, the weight of the waist is supported by this bodily shelf that comes from the rectum. And as you get down in the squatting position, these shelves kind of retract to open up and let things pass through freely.
Okay.
But in the sitting position, things are only about halfway open. So when you're going to the bathroom, you're actually pushing against your own body. And the lower the toilets, the closer you are to the squatting position, then you're going to be okay. But the fact is, we have to push hard in our society, and it's partly because of our diet. We don't eat enough roughage, to generalize, but it's also because we're fighting against your own body. And in Eastern countries, places where they squat, they have much less instances of hemorrhoids than we do.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
hemorrhoids is just a burst blood vessel because you've been pushing too hard.
But here's the thing. It was odd because the thing that I heard about the design of toilets is not even that they're going to be a squat thing, but it's for older people who have trouble sitting down or getting up. They should just be able to kind of lean and have that be. But you're saying no, it should actually be even lower and more, well, technically uncomfortable.
Because, it's hard. And I've tried squat toilets because I've done some traveling in Eastern countries, and they're really difficult for us to use because we didn't grow up using them.
Right.
And so our speaking for myself at least, my leg muscles just aren't strong enough. I'm just not flexible enough to balance in that kind of position. But in the East, even the older people, once they get really old, they still have the muscles. They're doing squat thrusts every single day, maybe 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah, that I'd like to see.
They can do it. But so
and when did they wipe? Did they wipe in that, or did they stand up and wipe?
Well, depends on what you mean by wiping. They don't actually use toilet paper in the Eastern countries.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we scoff, but let me ask you
Yeah,
this.
I'm scoffing.
Or let's say you were going to the bathroom and through some terrible mishap, you got poop on your arm.
Yes.
What would you do?
Wash off my arm.
You'd wash it off. You wouldn't take a piece of paper and smear it off, and then, maybe not quite, take another piece of paper and smear it a little bit more, and another piece of paper and smear it more until you couldn't see it. No, of course not. You'd wash it off. And that's what the people in the East, they look at us and they think, you guys don't wash yourselves, you just smear it until you can't see it anymore?
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, this is why a lot of the European toilets have that, the last time I really talked in depth about this kind of thing, I had a spokesperson on from Toto, the Toto company, because they created this washlet toilet. Yes, I was fascinated by this and was very happy to have her on. And it's this bowl which has a warming agent and then water. It's like a bidet also. The water shoots up, hits you in the pooper, and that supposedly cleans you out as much as anything else. Absolutely. And then it dries you very nicely. I don't even know what the hell else. It feeds you breakfast. Unfortunately, it feeds it to you rectally, but that's a totally other...
Hey, it's a step at a time, right?
Yeah, right.
And actually, in Japan, where Toto originates, they get even fancier than that. They have toilets that will supposedly analyze your urine and then, email you the results of whatever you can learn about yourself.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's like your IQ is 128.
Exactly.
And you have too much sugar in your diet.
And you have osteoporosis. This is Dave Praeger, the author of Poop Culture, How America is Shaped by Its Grossest National Product, and you're listening to Dave's Gone By on WGBB.
Why do so many people see pooping as quote-unquote a shameful act? This is one of the questions I'm supposed to ask you from your website. So I think by the way, the website is poopthebook.com. Poopthebook.com. So one of the questions is, why is there shame associated? Is it because of the Victorians?
It comes from the Victorians, yeah, but it's more like, the form of the toilet was created based on an ideology of making waste disappear. Now, after we learned about germ theory and realized that waste transmits disease and we shouldn't have it going into our water, then we kind of adopted the toilet for sanitation use. And suddenly, instead of being a tool of the elite, it was a tool of everybody. But it still retained the form that was based on the ideology. So even though now we're much more open about it than the Victorians were, and our society has changed, we still have this ideological apparatus in our bathrooms.
But are you saying that the culture is way before what we're talking about is the Western modern era? Are you saying other cultures had absolutely no problem with making doo-doo? I mean, they just go behind a tree. I mean, they still go behind a tree.
No, there's always been a push to...
Push being the operative term, yeah.
You're going to get me on every one of these, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's always been a push in many cultures. There's been a balance between shame and the body. It's like it partly comes from religion. There's a lot of influences. But what made the toilet different is it's the first time that ideology was able to be matched by technology. And so this is what makes our era different than the other eras. So in other words,
technology was able to keep up. People said we think we need this. Technology said, oh, we can build you this.
Right,
and there it was.
So when the toilet was spread across society as a tool of sanitation only, it could have taken many forms. But the fact is, it retained this ideological form where it has to be in a private bathroom, and you cannot hear what's going on. You shouldn't see what's going on. You certainly shouldn't smell what's going on in there. And the ideology has been closely associated with the infrastructure ever since.
I still think it should be right in the kitchen.
Right in the kitchen.
You eat something that has fiber.
It's like the circle of life, isn't it?
Yeah, just go in, out, there it goes. I mean, people have private bathrooms in their bedrooms, in their master bedrooms, because they don't want to walk 10 extra feet to the other bathroom. So it has to be that close. Well, I mean, I guess when you get older, that is kind of important. Okay, let's...
But as a measure of how much tastes have changed in, let's say 250 years before the toilet was invented, the idea of having what is essentially the outdoor privy in your house was shocking. You have chamber pots, which is what you would do when you just couldn't wait anymore. But the idea of building a structure in your house to poop in, my God, that's like shocking. So, you take someone from 1750, you take George Washington, and you show him the modern house, and you'd be shocked.
Okay, well, yeah.
It was always in the backyard. It was something that would take some distance from the house. Also, that was for technology reasons, because you wouldn't poop in sewers that whisk it away. You would poop in a cesspool, and it would just kind of sit there, and that gets pretty disgusting.
Now, let me ask, speaking of machines and things like that, one of the things you mention in your book, Poop Culture, is they built a pooping machine.
Yeah, they being an artist named Wim, a Dutch artist named Wim, or maybe Belgian, Dutch, I can't remember.
I have no idea. I don't even care. Okay.
a European artist named Wim Delvoye built what he called cloaca, which is essentially, like you said, a pooping machine. He teamed with a bunch of scientists and created this really elaborate machine that has chemicals and biological processes and bacteria, and you put food in one end, and it goes through all these chemicals, and out the other end comes poop.
Oh.
You can't tell the difference between poop and human poop.
Oh, my gosh.
But this isn't a science project, and he'll be the first to tell you this isn't about science, it's about art.
I thought it was about humor. Okay, but art will work. And what is the artistic message of building a machine that actually poops and digests just like a human body?
My interpretation is that it's a comment on the nature of art itself. So you go to a museum, and there's a machine that creates poop. And so you're sitting there, and you're looking at it, and suddenly you think, wait a second.
I have to go to the bathroom.
Well, after you go to the bathroom, you just think, wait a minute, I just paid $7 to come in and look at poop. Now, either this is a joke.
Hey, I paid $14. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what is it? Just because the museum says this is art, then it's art? So what makes this machine different from Picasso? It's that kind of comment. Okay. And it goes much deeper than that, of course. And if you read the book, it goes. I have a whole chapter pretty much devoted to art and poop.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, poop in art.
Some of the names you mentioned
entirely different. The aesthetics of waste. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's not in there.
Well. Remember when? You're a New Yorker, am I correct?
That's right.
So you remember back in the bad old days of Giuliani, after he had solved all the crime and he had nothing else to do, he decided to go after art.
Right.
And in museums and stuff. And he went after, I think, Andre Serrano with the urine on the crucifix.
Right.
And then the woman who created a rather pretty religious Indian painting of like the elephant, using elephant poopies.
It was actually a man named Chris O'Feely.
Sorry, okay. He looked like a woman, I thought. No.
I think he had long hair.
Oh, maybe that would do it, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it was the sculpture was of the Virgin, or not the sculpture, the art.
Oh, that's right, Virgin Mary. Yeah, that was.
And it rested on a pedestal of elephant dung. And Giuliani freaked out, of course, because he likes to do that. And he said, you cannot associate the Virgin Mary with poop. Now, the artist claimed that it was an homage to Africa, where elephant dung was considered sacred.
Right.
That may or may not be true. But what's interesting is how powerful the symbolism of poop is. It's the purest negativity in our culture.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I actually have a whole chapter devoted to that, devoted to the symbolic uses of poop. Like, for instance, remember, was it Police Academy 3? Did you see that one?
That's funny. I might have, but it's not foremost in my mind.
It's one of Gutenberg's more forgettable.
I've been watching some old Bergman movies and been checking out The Aviator. Somehow, right. Police Academy 3, it's lower in the pile.
Sorry. In about 20 years, Steve Gutenberg will be recognized for the genius he is.
Okay.
In the meantime, so there's a scene where the crotchety Lieutenant Proctor is in a porta potty, and through various machinations, the Police Academy squad lifts the porta potty up and deposit it in a stadium. And then they unbolt it, and they lift it up, and they reveal Lieutenant Proctor pooping on the toilet while reading a comic book in front of 50,000 football fans.
Yes.
Now, on the whole, it's like, so what? Yeah.
Yeah.
The bathroom. Well, so does everybody.
It's a comedy thing, yeah.
It's a comedy thing, but when you really
Stolen from MASH, by the way. I'm sorry?
When you think about the symbolism of it, the fact that an authority figure is no different than all of us because he poops.
Oh.
And this is like the most shameful thing that could happen to him.
Well, yeah, but they also did, it's the same exact scene as in MASH, where they had Lieutenant Houlihan taking a shower.
Mm-hmm.
It was, that was more of a sexual thing, but it was still,
right.
Hit the gong, up goes the thing, and there's Sally Kellerman. So,
yeah.
Yes, you're right in that sense, but it's also a private thing made public. And they're both very personal and private.
Right.
One is a poopy, and one is more of a sexy girl taking a shower.
Sure, but there's a guy, and he's a sociologist, and I don't remember his name, even though I do quote him, who talks about life is like a stage, and you put on a persona, but what you're hiding is the true you. So you put behind a mask going to the bathroom because that is something that your character, the persona you play, does not do. And especially authority figures. The more important the authority figure is, the more easily they are to bring down by associating themselves with poop. Like, remember when George W. Bush a few years ago, maybe you saw this on the news, maybe you didn't, a photographer snapped a picture of him writing a note to somebody in a meeting saying, "We got to wrap this up. I need a bathroom break."
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
the higher they are, the more shocking it is to associate themselves with the lowest thing.
It's one of the few things that he's done that I actually applaud him for. Honesty and saying, okay, that we've come as far as we need to. Something's more important. I wish we would feel that way about the war. We've sent enough people over there. We don't need the surge. We don't need 160,000 guys over there. We've been there 5 years, and I really need to get to the bathroom. Let's bring them home. I would love to see that.
If presidents took a pledge where they couldn't go to the bathroom until the war was over, I think we'd have a lot less war.
And that's an even better idea than Lysistrata. Forget the sex strike. If we just close the bathrooms until the boys are home, I think that would make a big, big difference. We are talking to Dave Praeger, who is the author of Poop Culture, How America is Shaped by Its Grossest National Product. You can find out more about it at poopthebook.com. I've been looking it over, reading it a bit. I love the intro by Paul Provenza, who of course, he's the comedian, and he was also instrumental in making the Aristocrats film.
He was the director, I believe.
Oh, that's right. He was the director, so he knows a few things about poop stories.
Oh, yeah.
Had a true one of his own. That's kind of marvelous in the book. I want to give that away. What's the best poop story you ever heard?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I run also, in addition to my book, I run PoopReport.com, which is dedicated to people sending in and sharing their bathroom stories. Uh-huh. And one of the funniest ones I've ever read was of this fella who, it was Thanksgiving dinner, and all the family was over, and the turkey was downstairs about ready to go out. But he had some stomach problems, so he went upstairs and he clogged the toilet, and unbeknownst to him, the toilet overflowed and then the drippings actually came down through the floor and just right on top of the turkey. And the story of the title of that story, of course, is "The Day I Ruined Thanksgiving."
Oh, that's pretty good. If I had, there's one story in my life. It is actually the greatest story that I have to tell about my entire life, and it does involve this. Unfortunately, I don't have remotely enough time to tell it now. But let's just say it involves me, the theater, and a bad meal. And there's some. I'm sorry.
You were on stage when this happened.
Oh no! I think that would have been. You're right. That would have been even better. But this was close enough, and all the little details came together in such a perfect way, and such a perfectly miserable way for me in that particular evening.
Oh man!
One day I will have to share that with you because it's pretty spectacular. It was It remains the most famous theater review that I've ever written because I wrote half about the show and
On behalf of the readers of PoopReport.com, I implore you to submit this story to our site so that the world can enjoy this incredible story.
I appreciate that. I'll get around to it as soon as I get through the other 10,000 things I do for free. But
This is Dave Praeger, author of Poop Culture: How America is Shaped by Its Grossest National Product, and you're listening to Days Gone By, spewing the poop on WGBB.
So is there a sequel in the works? What's next for you, Dave Praeger, and your poopage?
As I said, I've been making this transition from humor to the more serious issues, and we didn't even talk about the environmental issues, of which there are many. I think my next book is going to be about the future of the toilet and sewage infrastructure in both the developing world and the developed world. So I'm actually going to be spending the next year in India, among other things, researching toilets and sanitation in the developing world. I'm fascinated because we think that the toilet is one of the ultimate achievements of modern civilization. But in a sense, all it's doing is collecting all our waste and transporting it to these $billion sewage treatment plants where they can do a pretty good job of taking the water and cleaning it and putting it back into the water cycle. But there's still a lot of problems with what they're doing with the waste they collect. And I think that there might be an even better way. We need like a Manhattan Project for poop. We need to really
blow it up
and revolutionize the way we collect it and the way we do something. Because poop is our link to the food chain. We're at the top of the food chain, which means we should be at the bottom. We should be providing the food for the microbes. We should be providing fertilizer for plants.
Well, not every die we do.
We don't. Well, so we do in the sense that a lot of these sewage treatment plants will take the sludge they collect and then put it on a field, and they think that that's pretty holistic. And it is in theory, but in practice, the sludge is contaminated by household chemicals like the paint you pour down the sink, and industrial chemicals, and all sorts of crazy heavy metals that are going into the sewage systems.
Yeah.
And so what we're actually doing is we're concentrating household and municipal waste onto farm fields, where at some point it's either going to travel up into the food chain or down into the water table. And so we're not so much eliminating the problem as pushing it off and concentrating it in this other area.
Yeah, you mentioned.
So I want to find the holistic solution to this, because there's got to be a better solution than what we're doing. And there's also incredible technologies coming down the line. I read about some researchers in Penn State who are making fuel cells that use sewage as a fuel.
Finally.
So imagine if your waste was powering your house.
Well, I mean, there's all this talk about, what is it, hydrogen that George Bush is into to run cars, and they're saying that's the most ridiculous, cost-wasteful thing, I mean, aside from coal and fuel oil. And here's the idea. Hello, it's something everybody's making, literally. Right. It's free. People would be happy to donate it.
Yeah, exactly.
And why can't we? What an ideal idea.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's I'd say it's utopia, and then you'll say it's pootopia.
Oh, you're better than that. Come on, make one better poop pun for us to go out on.
Oh, no, you're putting me on the spot, aren't you?
I'm putting you on the pot, as it were. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Dave Praeger, he's the author of Poop Culture. It's been actually surprisingly delightful to have you,
thank you,
on Dave's Gone By. I wish you absolute best of luck with your upcoming sewage project, as it were, not to mention sales of but where can people get Poop Culture?
Actually, they can anywhere. It's at Barnes & Noble, it's at Amazon, it's at Borders, wherever you want it. there you'll find the poop.
I want to thank you so much. I mean, I've been, I want to say pleasantly surprised by how interesting this was, because I've an overwhelming interest in this topic. But you've been so well spoken about it, and amusing, but also serious. So I want to thank Dave Praeger so much for getting on the pot in the neighborhood and telling us the poop on poop.
My pleasure.